Yeah.
Hey, hey, my friends, welcome back to the Purpose Mastermind podcast. I'm bringing back a guest from probably 3 years ago, Jeremy Slayden, and he's going to speak to a topic that you've heard me speak on a lot in the last couple of months, which is this thought about life. The reason we wrote the book In the Game is because so many men struggle to find their game when their career comes to an end. And so I've been finding former athletes who performed at high levels to kind of pick their brain because I think they understand this dynamic in a way that a lot of us don't. And so, Jeremy, we're going to dive into some great stuff today. But first of all, just give the listeners a summary of what your life looks like right now. You know, who you are, what do you do, what's your daily life look like, what's your family look like? Just give us a
Yeah.
snippet so we have an understanding of who you
Sure.
are.
Yeah. Well, 10,000 foot level.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a Christian. I'm a family man. I've got two little boys that are 8 and 6, and beautiful wife. And we're there. She's homeschooling. She's a teacher by trade, and we decided on that path when things went really haywire, maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago in the public schools, that was going to be our path. But between little league coaching, being a dad, having a regular day job in the roof contract in the commercial roofing business, and then also hosting at my own show, which you can find at J Slay USA on all platforms. I'm pretty busy.
Uh-huh.
So, and then, things like this, randomly you saw something kind of cool I had the opportunity to do the other day and reached out. That stuff happens to me fairly often, and I love it because it's a
Yeah.
cool interruption where I reconnect with somebody that maybe it's been 2 or 3 years, but we have, I mean, the way you were talking off camera before we started, it's like I know exactly what he's talking about. So, 10,000 foot level, that's the overview.
Yeah. So we just had a great conversation before this recording, and we'll dive into some of this content. So when I grew up, my highest level of athletic prowess was either PE class or the park across the street. And I will say, probably my biggest accomplishment as an athlete was being nicknamed the toaster back in
Okay.
PE class because at that time I was a bigger kid, but I was pretty good with sports. I played so much. I was PE good. I could catch the ball. I was smart, and
Hey,
they
if you
called
go
me
to
the
you go to a
toaster.
big school, that PE good's a big deal now. That's gonna have all the kids talking and the playground.
Yeah.
That's a huge deal.
Well, I was there was in that time in history there was a man named the refrigerator. He played for the Chicago Bears. The
Yeah.
refrigerator, Jim Perry, I think was his
Yeah.
name, and they called him the fridge. And because he was obviously a bigger guy and
Oh
he
yeah.
could still run the ball, and so when when someone called me the toaster in junior high, and that yeah, obviously the connection was obvious, man, I felt like somebody,
Yeah.
and I say that it's not really just funny. It was actually very meaningful because when you're a junior high kid, you don't even know who you are. You just feel like you exist, and
Hmm.
someone calls you the toaster, and you know that that means what it means. It was like that was
Yeah.
actually a very meaningful thing to me.
Yeah.
So, but what I want to pick your brain about is your sports career, and I'll begin with this. Take us to what people may call the high point of your career in sports.
Sure. Well, before let me say something about PE class and gym class, and then I'll get to that. My first memories. Speaking of, in your boyhood, early years, wanting to matter, wanting to feel like you have significance and you can do
Yeah.
something well. That's just such a huge deal. I think to most boys, I think it's it's innate in
Yep.
us that we
Yep.
want to have something that we can call our own. We say, "This is my thing. This is something I'm good at." And I remember those early days before, even the rec leagues were a big deal. I'm talking 8, 9, 10 years old, and it's gym class or it's the park across the street, and you do something, and your friends see that, or you realize, okay, I'm a little better than the other guys at this thing, and it does give you this sense of significance and pride, and I think that's a good thing. I think all boys, I'm going to speak to boys here, should want to find things that they enjoy, that they naturally have an affinity toward it and they're good at.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm like you in that started a chain reaction. The gym class commentary from other kids, like, "Whoa, did you see Slayden hit that ball over the tennis ball court, fences, or even kickball?" It didn't matter what it was. It could have been the 1 mile run in seventh
It
grade.
doesn't.
all that stuff, and I realized like this is something that sets me apart. And then you want to tell your parents and you feel, and honestly, at the end of the day, Mark, you feel loved.
We could just pause right there and just unpack the last 30 seconds of this need for significance inside of a man and how ultimately it is. It's being loved.
Yeah.
It's having people look at you and in a way be like, you're the man. And it might be because you just kicked the ball over the tennis ball fence, the tennis court fence.
Yeah.
But but that thing inside of a man, here's what, Jeremy, this pains me because I think about who I used to be as a man and I see it in so many men. I feel like so many men feel like the only calling on their life is to behave better.
Oh man. Yeah.
Instead
Yeah.
of living bigger, it's like,
Mhm.
don't mess up.
Yeah.
Don't say the wrong thing,
Yeah.
and I
And I
feel,
think those two things too, Mark, and I don't, I hate to interrupt you, but I wanted to say it before I forgot it. That call, that thing inside of them telling them I just got to do better, live better, sin less, those things, which may be coming from a good place. When they fail at that, I think they also feel, and I know this from personal experience, they feel disqualified from living bigger. They don't deserve it. They shouldn't take the risk because look who they are in the shadows.
uh, this conversation is going to cause a lot of problems.
Oh no.
Uh, Good problems, because I feel like what happens with a lot of us men, I say us men, is we always feel like our problems take us to the sidelines.
Yeah.
And then on the sidelines, we're trying to improve ourselves. But you can't. It's like we need the drive, the passion, and the point of the game
Yeah.
in order to then behave better. But the goal isn't behaving better.
Yeah.
The goal is the game. It's
Yeah.
winning, it's scoring, it's tackling, metaphorically and sometimes literally. And without the greater sense of meaning in our lives, being on the sidelines trying to behave better
Yeah.
is a fruitless, frustrating endeavor.
It's a cycle. There's no doubt about it. And I think it's strange, and you already alluded to this. When you fight, I remember it in baseball, and I remember in being a father will do this, you being a new granddad. Um, those things can pull you into your greatness. And then you start to, you're not really thinking as much about that stuff that you're trying to get away from, be it
Mm.
sin or be it your failures, because you're too busy doing good things now. I want to succeed at this thing God has called me to, or my own heart is telling me I really want to be great at this. I'm going to take the risk. When I'm busy with that, that's why a lot of, I mean, there's of course a lot of athletes that get caught up in drugs and other things, but it's also one of the very things that can take kids in their formative years away from the bad stuff because they're too, they got to go to practice. They love that game, they love that sport, and so they're spending their time there. And the same thing I think applies to way after your sports career when you're in your regular, family life or as you were talking about, post work career.
Yeah, this what a kid experiences in sports growing up, I think is kind of a microcosm. This is my theory, a
Yeah.
microcosm of kind of what life needs to be. Like, should I live a life as a man that carries significance? Should I feel like I'm part of a team? Should I be part of a team?
Mm,
Should I have mentors and coaches in my life? I think yes. I think we must. And I think the inability to create this kind of life as an adult causes a lot of men to just kind of drift away into nothingness. And the nothingness leads to things like alcoholism or gambling or having an affair on her wife, and then everyone thinks that's the problem. Well,
yeah.
what if the problem is not really that? The problem is they're not living out the fullness of what life is meant as made to be.
Yeah.
What if what if on the sidelines misbehavior is the only option for a man? Like, what did you do? You just sit and be bored?
Yeah, I think it feels like the only option, perhaps. But you're right. It is those things you mentioned are problems, but they're not the root of the
Not the
problem.
root. Yeah.
So, but
Well, let's go back
you
to the first question.
yeah, we jumped in really.
I'm fired up. So if people look at your life and they knew
Yeah.
you, what might people say was the high point of your sports career?
My sports career. It's funny. My sons asked me this last night. My older son, he's like, when were you like at your best or whatever?" There's when you're a real prospect, there's different periods because probably when I was the highest ranked prospect was my freshman year at Georgia Tech when I broke the freshman home run record and I batted almost 350 and we were in the College World Series and here I'm a freshman batting third for the number one ranked team in the country and broke a freshman home run record and led my team in all the hitting categories. Like, so was I as good a hitter and good of a player then as I was 6, 7 years later playing for the Phillies, like, in Double-A? No, I was a way better hitter in Double-A. And had you put me back as a freshman at Georgia Tech, I would have had a much bigger type season. But after that freshman year, there were some real difficulties and challenges which we can get into because they shaped me. But I would say that one high point would have been the Georgia Tech freshman year. Then I got drafted by the Phillies, and then I kind of, after all these injuries, I returned myself into a prospect again. And after my Double-A All-Star season, I got invited to Major League Spring Training, which, even though I'd gone to a lot of minor league spring trainings, this is a big invite for me, especially after everything I've been through. And I just blew it out. I went there. I mean, I was hitting home runs. I was making friends with all the big league guys. Ryan Howard came up to me. He's like, "You're about to make a ton of money in this game." I was partying with him at night. I was dabbling, but I was having a wonderful time. And I was playing awesome baseball. And it was where my physical skills and my mental understanding and maturity finally kind of lined up and overlapped before
Mm,
my skills began to deteriorate a little. And a lot of that deterioration, which happened late 20s, was because of the injuries. And I wasn't as big of a prospect then because by the time you hit 25, 26, 27, 26, if you've not made it to the big leagues, your prospect status every year goes down because they want to have you longer, and you go from being, okay, this guy could be a franchise player to this guy could be somebody that helps us for a few seasons to he might get a cup of coffee in the big leagues. So regardless of how good you are, that's just the reality of what
yeah.
happens and changes. So those are the two high points: freshman year at Tech and mid toward the end of my pro career. And I've got quite a story. I'll just say it real quick. I was mashing the ball in that spring training. Charlie Manuel, who was the manager at the time, I kept pinch hitting. He's like, "Slayden, grab a bat." So I go grab a bat, go up there, and I hit another home run. As I'm rounding the bases, I'm like, "This is I'm playing lights out baseball here. It's just this is awesome. It's fun. I'm rounding those bases. I think I've told you this before. I lost all the feeling in my right leg, and I don't know if it happened on the swing. I don't know when it happened, but I barely got to home plate and had to put both arms around two trainers, and they had to carry me to the training room. And I basically laid on my back for a month, and I had severely herniated a disc. And that ultimately led me. I mean, it wasn't the moment I was out of baseball because I hung around for another year, but that was really the end.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that story. That's incredible.
Mm,
So you hang around for another year.
yeah.
When does the game end? Does someone decide for you? Do you decide? How does the end happen?
Yeah, this is kind of a beautiful thing. It ended in two parts. So I continued to play, and I was actually, even though I was hurt, my back was hurting all the time. They put me in AAA and then moved me to Double-A. I was never playing in AAA. And again, it was an age thing, and I'd gotten hurt in spring training. So even though I'd done great, they were kind of had decided they had different plans for me, So they kind of
Yeah.
buried me on the bench, put me in Double-A, and just never played me. When I did get in the game, I kept hitting these pinch hit home runs, and like I finally got mad. And finally, after a lot of talk, I mean, you never want to say like you quit, but it was just obvious. Like I'm hurt, I'm playing great, the team is burying me, the trade deadline has passed. There's 3 months left in the season, and I need to move on. So I signed the papers saying my career was over, but the Phillies still had the rights to me for 2 years. But I thought I was done with baseball, and it was one of the toughest nights of my life. I went home, and it was amazing because I got really right with God during that time when I went home, and I didn't actually run into the shadows. I made a lot of really good friends who were strong believers and positive people in my life, and got very involved in my faith, which would have been lacking during my pro career. And then all of a sudden I start, getting that itch, and I was in really good shape. And I wrote an email to the head of player development with the Phillies, and he called me. And I'd said, hey, if you're interested and you saw what I could do when I was hurt, I'm not hurt anymore and I'm in shape. Do you have a spot for me? He called me. He's like, I think we do. So I go back after a year off of baseball, and this is amazing because it never happens. I get a chance to go back. I go to spring training. I feel great. They put me in double A. My first doubleheader, I go 3 for 6 with a couple doubles and a single. And I'm my old self again. Even though I'm 29 years old, I'm like, this is unbelievable. This is incredible. And go out to the next game, and all of a sudden, as I'm just throwing, this tells you how fragile our bodies are, or how God's plan can, because there'll be a God's plan in this thing in a minute. I'm just casually warming up before a game, like throwing the ball 35 feet, just something, it's very simple. And I take a step, or I push off that back leg just barely, and all of a sudden my knee just goes on fire. There's no pop. It just feels like it's on fire. And there I like, what is going on? Here we got, I worked all this time to get here. Now my knee's on fire. They put me on the disabled list to try to rehab my knee. I rehab it. It still hurts a little bit, but I'm able to pretend I'm not. And the moment they take me off the disabled list, the Phillies release me. So
Mhm.
now I'm released to play for any team, but I'm also kind of hurt. So I take my chances with independent baseball, and I go up to New Jersey. And we'll leave the baseball discussion. I did play out a season in independent baseball and got to say goodbye to the game in my way. But that's where I
Yeah.
met my wife. I looked over there because my wife, I wondered if she was listening. That's where I met her, was in that season, which out of all the random things, why did I get a chance to go back to baseball? Why, it was so amazing. And then I get hurt. And then I go to this random independent team, and I meet my future wife. And it was just,
Yeah.
I would not change it.
Yeah. That's awesome. So the career ends. What does life feel like when you no longer have this passionate pursuit?
Yeah. For me, it took a while for it to hit because, again, like when I left the first time, made a lot of good decisions for 1 year and went back to baseball. But you could still call that was still my baseball career, even the year off.
Yeah.
After that last, game, and now I don't have really any money in the bank anymore because the minor leagues will suck you dry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so got to get a job. You got to get on with the major things in life. And I've met this woman that I'm probably going to get married to, so that I got to take that serious. And so there's all these things that like require my focus, attention, and passion, but yet there is a void, a deep one for me it crept in over the course of a year to 2 years, where I really didn't feel it for a while because I just busied myself in stuff I had to do, right?
Yeah.
Then you do begin to feel the void. And then my back pain was becoming worse and worse, where I'd heard it all those years before. So I'm dealing with physical pain, lack of finances, and a loss of this identity that I built for myself for 30 years. And that led me down a pretty dark path where I stopped. Here's when you said that thing about we don't have a locker room, we don't have mentors, we don't have. In some ways, I was like, I don't even want that right now. And then when you start dabbling in stuff that you're ashamed of, you don't want to be around people.
Mm.
So it's not, I wasn't seeking it out. And I think that's what a lot of men do. And I loved your dichotomy between go live a big life that you really want to live versus, um, man, I've just got to make better choices, and I've got to not sin so much. And I don't
Yeah.
want to I want to keep all those things that are not supposed to be in my life. I want to keep them out of my life. That's the goal. But I think again, when you're doing all those things you're ashamed of, it's really easy to run and hide. And for 2 or 3 years, that's exactly what I did. And I was making enough money there was enough things I could still be like hold up as a shield to the world so that so nobody could penetrate. They couldn't ask the questions. They couldn't get to where my heart really was. But that was leading me down a place that was affecting my marriage in a big way. It was affecting my moods. It was affecting the chemicals I was putting in my body. It was affecting my physical conditioning. Um, and, I had another choice to make, and it came down to the choice you said earlier. And it was my therapist at the time, because I knew I had problems. He was like, Jeremy, if you really want a real life and you want a real marriage, it's time to talk to your wife for real about all the stuff going on. And we did that. And I'm purposely not going into a lot of detail just because it always
Yeah.
hurts. And I think I did it on the
Yeah.
last show with you, is I went into all the nitty gritty.
Yeah. It's not necessary.
Yeah, but coming clean on all these things, and then feeling real love, feeling now there was anger, no doubt about it,
Yeah.
but this sense of I'm still loved by my wife, by God, by the people that have always loved me, and they want the best for me, and then rebuilding from there. But yeah, that was that choice of, do I want to remain in the shadows? Because I could live that way till I die.
Yeah.
And you'll go to your grave with your secrets, and I guess some people choose that, but I didn't want that.
Can you tell me what it was like, the locker room? Because I had no locker room. I played in the park
Yeah.
and we go home.
Yeah.
What was the locker room like? What was teammates like for you?
Yeah, well, it's a lot different than in high school. You spend some time in the locker room. You go there, you get dressed, you go after the game, you get undressed. You may shower. I don't know if you shower. In high school, we didn't shower, but at the field, I mean, we showered.
Yes.
But once you get into college, and then especially pro ball, the locker room is where you spend the majority of your waking hours. It's crazy. I mean, you get to the field at 1 in the afternoon, and you probably usually bring lunch to the field. You eat at the field with your teammates. And these locker rooms, unless you're really low level minor leagues, they're big, they're spacious, there's TVs, but that's who your peers are. There's very few people traveling the country doing some entertainment style, whether it's sports or music or whatever. But there's a very select group of people that even would understand your life. And not only that, but understand the skill level you have to bring. So all of our jokes, all of our discussions, all these different things are really the kind of things that are only funny to those guys and baseball fans who get it, right?
Yeah.
But outside of that, there was really a huge culture clash and this was part of a problem with me and my wife, when I left baseball. Now when she met me when I was still playing, and there was some leeway there, because you fall in love with somebody, you're going to let them like do what they do, and you don't judge.
Yeah.
But when that ends, and I continue to bring that gladiator style approach, the humor, that kind of stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
suddenly I wasn't funny anymore. And
Yeah.
suddenly she doesn't like the way that I'm talking about certain people or whatever, that was totally fine in a different culture of a baseball
Yeah.
locker room. But and I'm maybe saying and doing things just innocent hearted. This is just who I had become. And I had to realize, like, this actually doesn't fly very well with some people I really care about. And in the culture at large, it's very different.
Did you enjoy the locker room?
I I did not in college at all. And in pro, well, until my last year, and then in pro ball, I loved it. I loved it. And the reason is, this is going to sound like it's a different time in my life I've not talked about yet, but I grew up very strong faith. That was a good thing. And I took my Christian walk very seriously. And I began to directly link it to my baseball success. And then I became a Pharisee, basically, where I had to keep all the rules. And if others didn't keep all the rules, well, they probably just aren't as good as me. And it won't be long before
Yeah.
it was a very one-dimensional way of viewing success and life. But I
Yeah.
was a kid. I'm gonna give myself, I was a kid and I had to learn.
Yeah.
And when you are that person, and when you have some success, you're not going to make a whole lot of friends. So I wasn't probably I mean, my freshman year, I was so successful that sort of makes people like you, and you kind of just won't, I didn't
Yeah.
ruin it. But that
Yeah.
next year, that sophomore year, when I wanted to achieve even more, and I started to just grind, and I hate that word. because grinding makes me think of a guy scared. He's gripping the golf club really tight. He's walking up
Yeah.
to that ball, and all he can see is the out of bounds over here and the water over here. And man, he's
Yeah.
grinding. I like to think of a free flow. And I mean,
Mm.
if you want to really excel, that the
Yeah.
amateur, and I'm getting a little off topic, but it may make sense. The amateur way of thinking about sports is, man, we got to go hard. Let's grind it out. Let's work harder than the other guys because that's what we know how to do. We're okay. Okay. Yes. Work hard. Yes. But if you're playing a professional sport that's going to require over 153-hour games, along with all the practices, everything else, you got to learn how to mentally be at ease and be free flowing with your body like water so that you aren't going to hurt yourself every other movement you make. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I think there's a lot that you can overlay onto life with that analogy of well, I'm not going to try to go into all that now, but you asked me, did I enjoy the locker room? As a grinding, rule-keeping Christian guy in a Division I locker room, it's very difficult, at least for my kind of passionate, intense personality. When I loosened up after all of, because my junior year in college, I broke down. I didn't talk about this. I missed my junior year entirely. And then I got to come back. When I got to come back to college, it was like God had given me this gift of, okay, now you get to play again. Now you get to accept other people for who they are, and that maybe they didn't grow up like you.
Mm.
And you can enjoy this in a whole different way. And it doesn't have to be about whether you go 4 for 4 over four. It can be just the fact that you get to run out on that field and just
Yeah.
appreciate that. And so that was a huge shift. And it was funny. People, again, the locker room guys are pretty forgiving because it went from Jeremy's not a fun guy to be around. And they never said that, but I knew it. And very quickly, man, I had a lot of friends and I was accepted. And um, but that pendulum really swung where I became kind of the party animal with the Phillies. By my fourth, fifth season, that became sort of what I was. Now, I took my baseball very seriously, but I think it was a reaction to all of those years where I'd taken it so seriously and kept all these so-called rules. But
Yeah.
yet I had so many misfortunes happen in terms of injury, and God was just proving a point to me. It's like you can keep every rule and you can grind and you can work out in the weight room until you hurt yourself, but you ultimately don't control what's going to happen. You have some,
Mm.
I can control I think we talked about this once. I can control the choices I make, but the moment I step outside of a very controlled environment,
Yeah.
anything can happen. Anything can happen. And that's why I think we got to be with our minds more free flowing rather than grinding. And it's got to be this way.
I've heard a lot of athletes talk about, you know, even with sports. I listened to a former football player just recently say that he was asked, "What was your favorite like play?" And he's like, it's hard to really answer that. He said, "If you want to know my favorite, my favorite stuff was in the locker room."
Yeah,
And I've heard a number of athletes talk about that and what they had with other people.
yeah.
And what I think is interesting is I think oftentimes when you think about kids in sports or men in sports or women in sports, it's like you have this camaraderie of teamwork in a locker room, and but your teammates for a purpose.
Hmm.
And I feel like as an adult, it's hard to find teammates, number one. It's
Yeah,
hard to find that kind of real teammate kind of culture.
yeah,
You might know people or go to the same church or work together, but as far as like being in something together, and then I feel like with men, especially, most of the groups that are being offered to men, the focus is on changing a man's behavior.
yeah.
It's like behavior modification program. Come over here and meet with us guys. We're going to work on you not drinking. Come over here. We're going to work on you not watching what you watch on the screen. Come over here. And it's not really inviting men to, hey, come over here. We're going to do something.
Hmm.
There's this mission, this thing we can do. And
Yeah,
I don't see that a lot being offered to men. So for you as your life is very different now,
yeah.
what do teammates look like for you? Is it hard to kind of find the kind of teammates you want?
It,
What
it 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 can be, and there does have to be a level of intention to make it happen, right? Because right now, my life, you said, what's life look like today? Right. One thing I didn't mention was, man, I get together with guys like, Ben Zobrist, who I did that batting cage, teaching thing for an hour the other day. I could do that more. I should do that more. But when you are coaching, two little league teams and you got your husband responsibilities and you have a job and all, those are things I didn't have on me when I was just a good baseball player trying to make it.
Yeah.
So there is we got to be fair in the conversation of, man, what happens? Why don't you had friends back in high school or college and you had a locker room and all that? It's so promoted and given to you and you've got all this time to do it and that's what you're there to do. Then your life becomes a lot more fragmented and fractured with good things many times. And I think there are some guys that understand this problem very well, and they're involved, whether it be their church or a men's group or the guys at work that they connect with, and they do make this happen. And they do have, I don't just mean I think going hunting or whatever, like the manly man stuff, that's great. Go have an adventure. But I think for me, like we have a couples group, but there's two or three guys in it that we'll get together privately. And we understand where we're all at with life and the goals we have and how we want success for our children.
Hmm.
And, a lot of it's just enjoying that time together, sharing stories. As far as intention of, a goal, like I want to win or I want to get to the big leagues personally. And on the way to that, I've got these teammates around me. We all want to win the AA minor league championship. That'll be fun. Let's do that
Yeah.
together. Right. I don't have as much of that personally right now. And maybe I'm missing because this is informative for me. This is good for me to think about. Like, where do I need to have more of a locker room? I will say one thing, Mark, and we don't have to get into it at all, but you probably would be at some level aware because of my political involvement. And then especially the last year and a half, because of things that I began to believe were right and I began to say online, I became outcasted in some ways by some of the church community, especially the men, because they felt differently about it. And in the way that went was not, hey, you can't come anymore. It was just the phone never rang anymore, or
Yeah.
there's no
Wow.
response. It's just a wall. Um, so on a personal note, that has actually made that harder because I was developing and we were even going on some trips and things like that. All that stopped very quickly. So there's been a hole to be filled for me there, but that's only a year old. And that may not be everybody's thing.
Well, when you said that you and your wife are part of a couples group,
Hmm.
most people never have that. Just to be able to say that right there
Yeah. Yeah.
is a legitimate, like, if a married couple has a couple of couples they hang out with consistently versus not having that, like that's night and day difference. And then you said me and those two guys meet
Yeah.
together separately on our own.
Yeah.
Like the difference between having that versus not having that,
Yeah.
you can't measure it.
Yeah. And when you
It's
add up the time put into that, between the group that meets on Sundays and we rotate, and it is a Bible study, but we also hang out. So we have a Bible study,
yeah,
then some hangout session. We eat together. That's probably 2.5, 3 hours, and that's
yeah,
weekly. And then on top of that, the guys probably meet once every 2, 3 weeks. So it's not a ton of time, but you can't compare that to, oh, well, every day I went to the locker room and spent 6 hours in the locker room and 3 hours. I mean, that's 9 hours at a field that it's given to you.
yeah,
So I got to judge it correctly too. I can't say, well, I really don't have. I actually do have some pretty decent community
yeah, you do.
comparatively, but not compared to the old locker room days.
Well, when you said, yeah, the locker room looks different. You're right. It's not every day, but you said about those couple of guys you meet with, you said we meet, every, couple of weeks, and you said we know where we're at in life.
Yeah,
Like a lot of people can't say that,
yeah,
that there's other people who really know them and
hmm
know where they're at, and just like to be able to share in the experience of life, like there's something powerful about that if a man doesn't have, he's in huge trouble.
yeah. As you said that, I had a thought. One cool thing about the men in that group is we know what each other's, quote unquote struggles are, and we've been very open about that. That's great. And we can talk about those things together and identify, okay. and I'm not pinning it on those guys because I've never approached the subject. I mean, I know generally what these two guys want in their life in a very general sense. But in terms of if I were to sit down with one of them, okay, and just say, man, here's all the good things I got going on, but I really personally, for me, not for my wife, but for me, what would be my own big league spring training again, or my World Series? What's that big thing that
Mhm.
I want? And maybe if he knew that, and it would help me formulate what that should be. Um, and on top of that, we could help push each other to those things in a positive way. So I think, like you said earlier, it can be good to get with other men or couples or whatever, where just for the relational side. But and our thing is not this, but if it is just about sin management, or how do we change our lifestyle a little bit to become more holy,
Yep.
but there's
Yep.
nothing you're actually driving forward for. It's
Yep.
just, what am I not going to do as much of? Yeah, that's only
That
it's less than half.
that's what I would call a group I used to be in.
Yeah,
Because how
yeah,
inspiring is that? Like, okay, Saturday morning, I'm going to go meet with these guys and we're going to talk about whether we ate too much or drank too much or,
yeah,
it's just, there's no inspiration in that. Like,
yeah,
that kind of focus is not going to, I don't think, propel any man forward. Although it seems moral to think that way. To me, the sweet spot is when you can be around other dudes that you can totally say, man, I'm struggling with X, Y, or Z.
hmm,
And they don't go, you know,
yeah,
and start trying to fix each other. Instead, it's like, I think the best way to battle against X, Y, or Z is to pursue our greater sense of mission
yeah.
and what
That's
we
right.
can fight for in life instead of just fighting against things
Yeah.
in life.
No doubt. I'll tell you one thing that comes to mind, and it sounds, because it's about other people, it's about my kids, but as a father, and you'd understand this, one World Series MVP, which I never was, Ben Zobrist was, but to me, if I can look back in 20 years when both my boys are out of the home, and I know that if they were to be asked, was he there for you? Did he support you? Did he give you the tools that he knew how to as best he could? And did you enjoy growing up in that home? Was it a great experience? For them to say yes to that, that's World Series. And I want that really
Yes.
badly.
Yeah.
And so, okay, am I pursuing that? Yeah, I am. I'm coaching their little league teams. I'm spending a bunch of time with them. We talk about baseball cards. We go fishing. We do. And you know what? That doesn't feel like, well, I got to go do this. It's like, man, I get to go be with these two little guys that are just awesome and love me and love life. And yes, they cause problems and get in trouble and can be entirely annoying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But man, like, so how much time am I spending on that, which is a really good thing and a goal of mine? A whole lot. And I'm not saying that to toot my horn. I'm saying that is one of those things that changes, like in the minor leagues or major leagues, or in sports, I should say. It really is about you as an individual. I mean, you want your team to win, but your individual success is oftentimes what you're pushing for to help your team.
Yeah.
This is about my kids, but man, how much am I getting from this?
Mm.
It's incredible.
So this last question, I think you've sprinkled in the answer throughout our conversation. So I go back to when you were a kid and a young man, you have this adventure you're in called baseball. You have teammates, which means you have camaraderie, and you've got coaches and mentors. It sounds like you have found ways to embody that living the life you're living right now. And I'm going to answer this question for you. It's like if I were to like look at your life, I would say that the way that you have figured out how to embody this kind of life is through coaching your sons, taking fatherhood seriously, the relationship you have with your friends that you mentioned.
Hmm.
Am I in the right ballpark with
Yeah,
my
I want to make
answer?
sure I understand what you mean when you say embodying, because you mentioned mentors and coaches and those things, which were good for me, right? They're good for
Yeah.
any young man. You're saying that embody being I'm doing that now. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like yeah, to feel like the way you felt when you were on a baseball field.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you kind of feel like you're in a game right now
Yeah.
in this version of your life?
Yes, no doubt about it. And very much so now that my little older son's playing more competitively at 8, those feel like real games. Like the emotions are there,
Uh,
it's a lot of fun. And the beautiful thing on that quick point is I was a grinder. And I had and it was put on me to do that, to push, push,
mhm.
push, and how bad do you want it and all that stuff. And man, that's what caused my body to break down. I
Yeah.
mean, it really is. And I can now give him the gift of understanding the balance between love and passion for something and
Yeah.
also holding it with an open hand. Because don't we do everything better in sports when we're holding things with loose hands rather than
Oh
tight?
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's a metaphor for the mind and the heart, the way we feel about it. But I'm also going to hold it before God loosely because it could be taken away tomorrow. Will
Yeah.
I be okay if that's gone? So I'm sorry to dovetail there, but that thought really
No.
hit me because the youth sport thing, and Ben Zobrist and I talked about it on toward the end of that interview. If the kid already wants something, and then the parents and maybe the church and maybe the school and all these other people are pushing him more and more, give us more, do more, you're great. Man, like how much could you be stealing from that kid if he thinks if I don't have this, I'm nothing?
That's incredible. Jeremy, thanks for taking the time for this. I love this conversation. I'm so glad that you have found a way to embody this passionate life that you're made for. I think every man is made to live a life of mission. And there's a lot of ways it can look. It can look like the simplest of things. It can look like, certainly, it can look like coaching your son's little league team. It's fishing with the boys and all these small things that really are very impacting. So thanks for taking the time to have this conversation.
Absolutely. I loved it.
And to the listeners, I want to remind you that your life has a purpose. You can know that purpose and you can be set free from anything that's holding you back from living it out boldly. Now go take on the day.
So we talked a lot in this interview about men living this adventure that you feel as a kid, right? Like through sports or whatever. And there have been ministries that come along based entirely around solving this problem. And the big one that would come to mind, would be that John Eldridge era, Wild at Heart, the
Yep.
book, the retreats. I never went on a retreat. I definitely was impacted by the book back in the early 2000s when I read it as a ball player, actually. Do you feel though, because those things usually culminate in a retreat and then you go home and it's like, well, now you need to build your own thing, which can be good. Are those things nailing it? Like that's how it needs to be done? Or because you've been in this, the search for a passionate, purposeful life, specifically, I think for men,
Yeah.
is the Eldridge stuff and the people that came after him nailing this? This is what it needs to be, or is there something left out?
I no, I don't honestly, I don't do a lot of reading. I do know the basics of the Eldridge stuff. I really don't read books, to be honest with you, and not against them. I just
You
I
just
love
write books.
well, I write more. I've written two books now, and I've probably read about two whole books my whole life, to be honest with you. Uh, I've just see this thing about life. I've been a lifelong watcher of people. I had four older siblings. I was a teacher for years, and I've just been a watcher of people. And what I do see so much about manhood is that so many men, they find their problems before they find their calling.
Hmm.
And in finding their problems, sometimes people help point out the problems. It's like it might be even a third grade boy that you go to school and the third grade boy doesn't sit still enough. So everyone's like, oh, he's got some kind of disorder, some kind of problem.
Yeah.
And all he wants is to like play, run, jump, and there's nothing wrong with him. And I think a lot of men, you you grow up and you don't know how to live out this passionate heart that's got a mission on the inside of it. And I think the inability to live out a sense of mission causes men to end up with messes. And a man with his mess, everyone points at it and says, "Oh, that's a mess. We have to fix you."
Hmm.
But a man doesn't need to be fixed. He needs to be found. He needs to find his calling. He needs to find his sense of purpose, because a man who has no sense of purpose will almost always fall into all kinds of distractions and behaviors, really to numb the pain
Yeah.
of a lack of purpose. So I don't know if that answers the question or
No, it
not.
does. It does. Help out a former athlete like myself. You got 3 minutes?
Yeah, I
Just
do.
okay. So when you put the kind of time and energy that I put for 30 years into a sport to make it, and whether you make it or whether you don't, you spend a lot of energy, and then that comes to an end. And then you spend 10 years, you got to make it again in your career. You got to get your finances, and you got to have some money in the bank and like support a family. And then you do that where yes, I still need to make money, but I've put together a cushion, we'll say, right? And now I'm at a place, and this is a real thing, where
Yeah.
I'm asking myself, okay, the coaching my kids is awesome, and that is a passion, and it should be. At the same time, like, what do I want? I've got Jay Slay USA stuff, and I could take that any direction. I could go with stuff like this all the time. I could do the political thing. I could talk about what I think about 9/11. Like, I could do any of that stuff. Is that really what I want? But there's this little bit of me, Mark, that's lacking energy in the sense of I've already given myself the majority of my life to a sport. Then I had to overcome all the body stuff and everything after that. Then I gave myself hard to work and to early marriage and all that. And now I'm like, I'm in the prime of life, I think, and I've got these two little boys and all that's awesome. But at this point, is it okay to not have a particular thing like, man, at this point, at 43 years old, by the time I'm 48, 5 years, what do I really want?
Yeah.
When people ask me that question, what do you want to be? What do you want in 5 years? I'm kind of like, man, I did that my whole life, and right now I would love to have a great answer for that, but I don't.
Our culture tells people that by a such and such age, you should have this certain level of success. And I think it's all wrong. We don't hear enough of these stories, the real stories of people's lives. Like on social media, we have people who promote themselves as having a certain level of success. And we can go, "Oh, I'm behind. I don't have that level of followership. I don't have that level of income," whatever it is. Oftentimes, even people that are promoting that, it's not even real. Lots of times it's fake.
Yeah.
And even those who do achieve some hyper level of success or seeming fruitfulness in their life, what we don't know is how much the grind to do that is destroying them internally. We see them promote how well life seems to be going at age 30 or 35. What they don't show is, oh, when I was 37, I lost everything because my grind and my pursuit was destroying my personal relationships and my own self from the inside out. And in 37, it all blew up, and I was ruined. No one talks about that.
Mm.
We don't hear those stories. And so everyone is left to listen to a lot of the false narratives and a lot of the entrepreneurship message of, if you want it bad enough, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, and if I grind enough and want it enough, it's going to happen. A lot of that's just garbage. I personally think the goal in life is that by age 50, you haven't ruined everything as a person.
That
So
sounds like a
that
low
the
bar, Mark.
yeah, well, it's so
Did
like
you just
because
say,
that's
I think the
yeah,
goal in life is by 50 not to ruin
yeah,
my whole life, not
yeah.
to burn it down? Okay.
Because here's why. Because I think after age 50 is a more biblical, safe thought about the harvest time of life. I don't think I don't think ages 30 to 50 is harvest season. I think in terms of the big picture of life, age 30 to 50 is more like If life is farming, it's about cultivating good soil in our life, and it's about planting really good seeds in our life. And that the harvest that comes from the life we've lived comes later than what culture says. Culture says hurry and be successful by age 40 or 45. Maybe you retire at age 50. Most people ruin themselves
Mm.
with this grind, but we never hear about it. They ruin themselves. But I think that people who look at life like farming, in that whatever I have, whatever my metaphorical land is in life, my family, my community, my kids, the job I work, all of it is like dirt. And my job every day is to have a rake in one hand and just work the soil of it. Just work it.
Yeah.
And then to have a satchel of seed in the other hand, and you plant seeds in it
Hmm.
faithfully every day. And over the course of time, like, things come out of the ground.
Yeah.
And instead of like having this master plan of like, oh, here's how I'm going to make my life happen, it's like, oh, I just rake dirt and plant seeds. And then 5 years later, something grows out of the dirt. And you're like, oh, I
Yeah.
should do something with that.
Hmm.
And people might think, oh, when did you plan that? Oh, I didn't plan that. I
Yeah.
planted that.
Mm.
And I think, but the entrepreneurial kind of like own your life, make your life happen,
Yeah.
makes us take a level of control, like over gripping the bat, that doesn't work. And I think there's much more of an ease that I think is godly and biblical, that we're just tending the ground of our life, and over the course of time, things come out of our life because we were just faithful farmers.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. And if something grows and you really enjoy that thing that's growing, continue to
Yes.
water it, continue to nurture it. And I
Yep.
think I love this point because I think that's where the people come to you thinking you're some kind of guru, and they're like, when did you decide to build that? And it's like,
Never.
I just watered and raked every day, and it started to grow, and I loved it, and I just kind of stuck with that.
Dude, I got goosebumps because I so believe this is kind of what how life really is in walking with God. That, the Purpose Mastermind, that, like, yes, we kind of did this, kind of, but more so, we just kept raking dirt and planting seeds. And if I could tell the whole story, even of how this happened, there there was nothing masterful about my role in this thing that came out of our life. I was a guy with a rake and seed. That's it.
Hmm.
This book in the game that me and 36 of my friends put together, there was nothing masterful. There was no like great plan. It was just in the dirt of my life are my friends. And one day we were raking and we were like, hey, I think a lot of men struggle like this. And what if we do something to help? Okay. And so we just did it. Like,
Yeah.
there was no great concoction. There was no great like epiphany. There was no like, there are no gurus. Gurus don't exist,
Hmm.
but there are good farmers. There are people who are faithful to rake the dirt of their life and plant seeds in it and just do it the next day.
Yeah. That's a good word.
So, so I'm glad to hear you say that you don't have like this big, like, oh, master plan.
Yeah.
I think you should enjoy the dirt of your life
Hmm.
and let stuff keep growing out of it.
It's good.
That's what I would do.
Yeah. Thank you.
So,
Good stuff.
sure thing. That conversation fires me up
Yeah. Yeah.
because most people, the grind to make our life happen just destroys us.
Yeah. It
But people
will,
don't talk about it.
no doubt. Yeah.
So anyway, keep raking the dirt, brother.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. It's great seeing you. I appreciate you reaching
It
out.
was great. It was great catching up. I saw that video and I was like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I'm like, I know Jeremy. Let's just do
Yeah, man.
this.
I'm glad you did. Yeah, anytime.
I'm a huge believer in taking steps with people I know. Like I'm a huge believer in that. Like
Taking steps, you said?
taking steps with people that I know.
Right. Yeah.
Like because there's my teammates. Like
Yeah.
I don't need strangers in my life. I need to do something with the people in my life.
That's good.
So thanks for jumping on for
Yeah,
this.
man. Thank you. You were
I
full of
loved it.
good reminders for me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Your stories, man. That whole minor league story. Yeah, I love it. Love it, man. All right, brother.
Yeah, man. Anytime. Let's stay in
Take it
touch.
easy.
See ya.
See
Bye-bye.
you now. Bye.